tastings uploaded to the Whiskey List app and YouTube, so you can come back at any time and watch it. But thank you for joining tonight. My name is Oliver Maruda. I'm one of the co-founders of the Whiskey List. And for one of our very last virtual tastings of this year, but one I've been looking forward to for, I think, Crafty, we've been chatting for 6 months about this, is Craftworks Distillery based out in Cape Tree in New South Wales. Good mate of mine, Crafty. I think you are actually responsible partially for the Whiskey List meeting. It was an oak barrel tasting. You introduced Chris Ross, the other co-founder, to me back in 2015, 16. I'm not sure if you remember that, but it was...
So I created the damage, did I?
So yeah, this all sort of come nice full circle, but it's a pleasure to be presenting with you tonight. Your first official single malt. We've got a couple IBs and a couple sort of work in progress casks, but we'll get to them shortly. That's it. Drink lots of water. We're drinking cask strength whiskey. Don't drink and drive. And yeah, if you need to add any questions, I've just put everyone on mute to reduce the background noise, but I just put it into the chat and I'll ask Crafty as we go. But yeah, let's pour yourself shades of bourbon. Let's Crafty, maybe you want to introduce us this first whiskey and then we can talk about it.
Yeah, not a problem. Okay, so what we are going to be drinking is, if you can see that, SOB 2020. Which means shades of bourbon, and this is not actually a single cask. This is 2 bourbon casks, and this is why we decided to call it shades of bourbon. So it's a 200-litre Woodford Reserve bourbon cask, so straight out of the US, second fill by Craftworks. And the other cask was made out of bourbon wood, so imported deconstructed cask. It was made down in Tassie at Tassie Cask Company. And so they made a little 100-litre heavy char cask for me. It is the independent bottling for sure. And just one thing about the label, don't know if you could see it, but we have a lot of fun, as you may or may not know, with label design. They all mean something quite special to me. And this one is the return of my daughter, who's now 10. She designed Black Gold Beast, an earlier release. So this one, she's got input into it. She took a texter marker and put all the little black boxes in, which actually broke the design up and actually worked a lot better. So he's back on the payroll. All right, so yeah, bourbon cask. It's 56%. The spirit is from a New South Wales, southern New South Wales distillery. At this stage, it's still not disclosed which one it is, but I can tell you the spirit is absolutely cracking, and you can actually now get it. And I'll just say New South Wales, southern, and you'll work it out from there, I think, social media. So bourbon cask. To me, it is straight up, it's a bourbon cask. It's got all that bourbon notes, those vanilla notes, those toffee notes. And I sometimes get just a really big hit of a passion fruit type note on it, which to me is more of a virgin note, but I definitely get that. Very aromatic too, I think. And you got that candy floss thing going on as well. So what do you think?
I think as soon as I poured it in the glass now, it's the aroma's just captivated the room. It's I'm sitting here and I was just, it just sucks you into the glass and you want to take a sip. Don't even take the time to nose it. It was just like, try it. That's kind of what it was singing towards me. But yeah, a lot of vanilla toffee notes that you get on a bourbon cask up front. I'm getting some candy something in it. I'm not sure if it's candy cane or fairy floss or maybe even a bit of Redskins or something. There's something sweet in there that I just can't decipher yet. But it's I think this one a bit of have you tried it with water, or you think it's good to go as it is?
I think it's good to go at 56. When we so Todd, who is very much part of Craftworks, I don't know if he's watching right now. He was actually meant to be here, but unfortunately we couldn't do it. We tasted it at various strengths, as we always do, and we sort of honed in on this strength. We think this is a good strength for drinking this one. It can take a bit of water, I know that, but it's Yeah, it's very aromatic, and it's fascinating for me because the same spirit went into Pinot Noir cask, which was the Rage release, went into Tokayoke, which is the Tokay wine cask release. And the aromatic nature of all three are different, but this is very, very big on the nose to me, and Rage was very big on the nose, whereas Tokay was a bit more suppressed. So it just shows you what a cask can do and how it can change the spirit profile. But when you're dealing with a good spirit, a base spirit, you can only go up from there.
And how old did you say this one was?
It is 2.5 years, about 2.5 years, yeah. Yeah. The wood balance is pretty good on it too, I think. It's got enough wood there, the oak's there, but it's definitely not overwooded by any means.
I know we're starting with a higher ABV up front, but now that my palate's kind of used to the alcohol, coming back for that second nose, there's an undertone of florals that are sitting right there, really at the bottom of the glass when you kind of give it a go, that I didn't get at the first sniff. It's quite interesting how it's evolving, I think.
Oh, it definitely evolves in the glass. See, I'm now getting a lot more passion fruit coming through. Originally, I was getting a lot more toffee up front. Now I'm getting that passion fruit. Yeah, absolutely.
So I heard the thunder straight away, and now it's just happened here. So
yeah, no, some big storms. Not as big as some of the storms we've had down at AEDT at the distillery, though. They've been absolutely mind-blowing.
Do you want to give us a quick, well, I guess while we're still enjoying the first whiskey here, what is AEDT, I guess, to you? I know what it is to me, but for those at home who've never been, why AEDT? What sort of drew you into the place? Where is it located exactly? What's it known for?
So AEDT is on a good run, 2.5 hours west of Sydney. It's exactly halfway between Lithgow and Mudgee. We're about 800 metres above sea level, 850 metres above sea level, and we're sitting on the top of a valley, which is supposedly the widest canyon in the world. However, Google has disputed that now, and Google's saying it's the second widest canyon in the world. But you talk to a local, and they'll dispute it. They say, no, it's the widest. It's a stunning part of the world. The landscape, the topography is fascinating. It's very old. It's a beautiful place. I think it's a beautiful place. It's quite rugged. And so where I am, I'm in AEDT village. Barely call it a village. There's a garage, an RFS, a school, community hall, a pub. What else? That's it. That's basically it. So I am located at the back of the AEDT Royal Hotel, 60 square metre sheds, which is now 120 square metre shed with the expansion. And how it came about was it was a trip heading out to Blackgate Distillery, good mates Brian and Janice. And I organised a group of people coming out. I think you were on that, Ollie, weren't you? You were on that trip?
Yeah, that's right. That was a great trip.
Yeah, that's right. And so Andrea, my wife, Mrs. Crafty, I was planning to drive the Friday night all the way through, which is 5.5 hours. And she goes, "You're mad." So she found accommodation halfway point, this cool little pub. And we had a great time. I thought it was a great location. I was looking at setting up in Mudgee at that point, just getting a shed. And so decided, well, this is actually closer. And as it's turned out, it's a really good spot for making whiskey because of the altitude, because of the big storms that blow off the plains. They put a lot of pressure on the barrels. And I love it. I have two lives. I have my Sydney life and I have my AEDT life. So I live there 50% of the time, and I live in a caravan at the back of my shed, and I'm part of the local community. So it's a pretty cool spot. If you haven't been there, highly recommend. And fully extensive bar or craft works. Not only that, I'm working with the pub, and we're getting a few craft spirits on the bar, and we got some good stuff that's coming to the bar. So it's well worth a trip out to Caperty.
The chicken schnitzel, I don't know if it's still on the menu, but that's a pretty good feed as well.
Yeah, don't eat for a week.
Right, it's gorgeous in summer. It's also great in winter. You got the little fire pits outside. It's yes, get a whiskey in hand, enjoy the New South Wales ruggedness. That cold mildew comes in early in the morning as well. It's a beautiful place all year round.
Yeah, well, it gets down to -5 in winter, and it gets up to about 40 in summer. So it's quite an extreme climate. Not as extreme probably as Mandurin. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I love experiencing the cold, because you get those big fires in the pub. It's just a beautiful atmosphere. And 2 years ago, some locals cut up a 44-gallon drum and put a hood on it and called it Kim Jong-un. And that's the local fire pit we had some good times around that.
That's awesome. I don't know if you remember, Gimme has left a comment saying she visited a couple months back. A lovely lady. I previously worked with her. She had bright blue, purple hair.
I remember, yeah, because your name came up in conversation. I remember.
So shout out to you, Gimme and Stephen. I can see in your background, looks like you got the Capertree Valley in your Zoom background there as well, mate. Thanks. Or Blue Mountains or something similar. No, just.
Who's that?
If you go to the people view, Stephen Walsh, looks like there's a wonderful sort of rugged background that kind of looks like Capertree, but yeah.
Actually, I've got to pull you up there. It's Capertee, not
Capertee. Capertee, my bad.
They'll hit you if you say Capertree. I'm just warning you.
Capertee. All right, noted.
Capertee,
noted.
Yeah.
All right, shall we jump into whiskey number 2?
Right, so what's whiskey number 2 we're going for?
The Vatman, which is the return of Vatman, I believe.
The return of Vatman. So, okay, this is not actually the label. This is it's a work in progress. And so what I came up with this concept called Vatman, and a mate of mine is a cartoonist, and I got to draw this little cartoon figure of a little man in a barrel. And the idea was we created this is right smack in the middle of COVID. We created this character called Vatman, because everyone needs an alcoholic superhero in their life during this time, 2020. And so Vatman became a concept, and we're going to have releases of Vatmans. But the guts of Vatman series is its collaborations with other distillers, and we're going to be making vatted whiskies or blended whiskies, but all malt grain. So Vatman 1 hasn't been released. It was just a little giveaway, but we are going to release a couple of bottles of Vatman 1. It's called Vatman 1, the real one. This is called The Return of Vatman, just when you thought it was safe to drink spirits again. That's the full name. And what it is it's a collaboration where I've got whiskey from my good friend Marty Pye from Riverbourne Distillery, and I've vatted it with my very first Craftworks Distillery barrel, which I've distilled. It was based on the original stout new mate, and I blended the two components together. And I said to Marty, mate, give me some whiskey, and I'll blend it with my whiskey, and I'll make something, and we'll just split the stock, and this will be part of the Vatman. And he was, yeah, fine, all good. So this is what I did. So I took Marty's really fruity light whiskey, very Speyside-y type, and Craftworks, which was quite rich and a very heavy whiskey, and was vatting the two together. And I was going side by side. I was going one part this, one part that. And then I was going one part more Riverbourne, one more part. I couldn't get the balance right. And then I thought about it and thought, well, hang on a sec. and I had a couple of litres of Grumpy Old Man on a Hill, which is an earlier independent bottling release, which is actually Marty Pye's spirit, his peated, 100% peated spirit. So what I did is I put a very, very, very small amount into the blend, and boom, it just brought the two components together and just married beautifully. This is one of my favorite whiskies right now. And it's going to be released in January, 500 mils, very, very small bottling, only going to be probably about 80 bottles, 70 bottles tops. But what do you think? There's a lot going on, isn't there?
It's very complex. There's layers. We need to unpack them all. But what's the ABV on this?
57, I think, from memory. Oh man, yeah, 57. Woo.
This is I think the first sip is always going to punch you in the face, but if you come back for more, it's starts to open up and tell a story. There's that peat comes through, the Voyager choc malt. I'm not sure if that's in that to me is the first thing that sort of came up. But yeah, now on second and sort of third nosing, I get some of Martin's fruitier, lighter.
Yes.
It's sitting there at the top. I might actually add a couple of drops of water in this just to see if I can get more of his spirit to kind of shine through as well. But yeah, the Voyager and the peat is the first thing that I notice.
Yeah, and it's I love it. I really love it because I can really taste the Craftworks DNA in this. And you mentioned choc malt, and absolutely choc malt is part of what we're doing. It's only one of the malts. We're using 4 malts in making our recipe, which is originally based on a stout beer, and just taking the malt component of a stout beer, and then over time it's evolved. But yeah, this is early in the piece where we did have the choc dialed right up high. We've taken the choc back, but the choc becomes more, and just the general roasted malts become more integrated into it. At first, when it's young, it's all up front, so it goes into the back more. But I gave a sample to Marty because he said, "You just go do it. Just do it. Just tell me." And so I gave him a sample, and he goes, "I actually like that." So, which is pretty cool. So that's the return of Vatman. There is going to be other Vatman projects. I have about 4 other distillers who are keen to have a play, and I'm not the only one doing it. I mean, you look at what Brian and Gareth have done. You know, Fleurieu and Blackgate, stunning. You know, coast to country, stunning, absolutely stunning. So it's exciting. I'm really excited by the Vatman concept, as I call it, because it's one thing to play with a single barrel. It's another thing to play with vatting barrels, and it's another thing to play with different flavor profiles from different distilleries. You use it like ingredients in cooking.
I do like the fact you've mentioned Blackgates and Fleurieu sort of coast to country, and in your Vatman, and I know there's a few other IBs in a show. In Scotland, you've got traditional distilleries, and then you've got IBs, but there isn't many sort of collabs, and maybe more modern day distilleries now doing sort of that stuff. But obviously with less regulation here in Australia, we just, made in, matured in oak, minimum 2 years with the cereal grains, that's whiskey. And then the rest is up to us to kind of what we want to do with it. It's amazing that we can have such interesting collabs. You can pick up the phone with Marty or any other distillery and go, hey, can I have a few liters of whiskey? I want to have a play around with it. And then you come up with interesting, complex drams like this to actually go, hey, this is Australian spirit in its greatest form, working together. And it's I think a wonderful tale, at least, is what I'm trying to say.
You've absolutely nailed something. And I was talking to 2 distillers about this today. In Australia, there's the basic regulations that we have to adhere to, which we do. And we have a lot of creative license currently in Australia, right? And I think about it, and I look at Scotland, which is more traditional, and I look at America. The American distillation scene, a lot of that has come about through brewers who have gone, hey, we're making beer, we could make whiskey. So they've got a completely different take on it. They're quite innovative, playing around with their different malts, their base malts, their black malts, their roasted malts, their choc malts, whatever malts, right? and playing around with their fermentations and playing around with their yeast. That is more the direction I'm aligned, and that's the direction more and more Craftworks is going to go. And I see the whole collaboration thing and is a huge opportunity for us. We have a really strong competitive advantage on the world stage because we don't have a huge amount of restrictions, and a lot of us have that Australian just give it a go, right, and see what happens. Like Vatman is give it a go, see what happens, and you may not strike it every time, but when you get something like that, you go, yeah, okay, that's pretty cool.
We need to remember our industry of Australian distilling is still in its infancy. It's about 20, 25 years old. The modern, Bill Lark era moving forwards. But yeah, it's interesting to see there's 200-300 distilleries. 80 have released official whiskey in Australia. Some are trying to do the traditional Scotch. Others are, experimenting and trying to do something uniquely Australian. And there's a lot in the middle who are kind of still trying to figure out who they are, what they want to be. And it's nice to actually hear, Crafty, that you have a vision in mind and where you want to go and where you want to take it. And you don't want to be Scotch. And I think that's okay to admit it, because you want to be Australian and you want to be New South Wales and you want to be Crafties, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, I would also take Bill Lark's saying that I think is a core philosophy in the industry and add something to it. And that is that a rising tide floats all ships or boats, right? And a lot of us subscribe to that. We're better if we work as a whole, right? And lift what we're doing. So a rising tide floats all ships, and we don't need any battleships in the area.
Yeah, let's not unpack that tonight. Let's save that for another time.
Leave it at that. But all I'm saying is we are a creative group of people, and people express, there's some fantastic things that will happen in Australia, for sure.
No, for sure, I agree. All right, let's as we pour whiskey number 3, I'm just conscious of time because there's 5 great dreams to go through. It's going to be the Fleurieu IB cask.
Right.
So, but whilst people pouring that in your glasses, let's go through some of the comments that have come in. So let me just go back to the top. I am very sorry. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. I'm just going to Feminine. I apologize if I've got that wrong. Has said SOB, that nose is amazing. And then followed up with Vatman number 2. I get coffee at the start, and then cocoa comes through really, really nice. So there's a lot of those coffee, dark chocolate notes. I'm getting that too. Jamie says SOB is amazing, and then he asks a question: is the distillery open over Christmas? You'll be in Mudgee during the 21st to the 27th of December.
Sorry. Unfortunately, no. We're actually going to shut down from about it actually might not be the 23rd, but probably around about the 24th to about the 5th of January. It's going to be a complete shutdown. We need to do it because we didn't shut down at all with the fires last year, and it's been a tough year, and we need a break. But the pub will be open, and the pub's got all craft works as well as other craft spirits on the bar, and some great beers, local beers as well. But the best idea, our cellar door is a bit hit and miss at this stage because we're not geared up properly, and it's when I'm there, the cellar door's open. We are working towards getting someone local, a mate of mine, trained up, and he'll be running the cellar door. So we're working towards having a permanent Saturday cellar door at least, and I'll be there every second week, so it'll be a Saturday and Sunday. And so during summer, we'll be open until people are not there, so until the sun goes down.
So you said the 23rd or 24th, right?
Yeah, probably 23rd, 24th we're shutting down. It's not 100% confirmed at this stage, though.
So Jamie said the possibility 21st or 22nd, there might be 1 or 2 days overlap, maybe pop through on your way to Mudgee. You can't miss it. There's a pub, there's a Telstra phone box and a few buildings, and that's it in town. Like you have to pull into the Cape Tea Hotel. And then behind it is Crafty's little shed, which is... I think after we pour this next dram, maybe you can talk about your expansion plans as well.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Okay, so we're now on Miles, is that right?
Yes, the Fleurieu IB cask. But why? First, tell us why you're calling it Miles. I think that's an important point to talk about.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Okay, so this is full disclosure on where the spirit actually came from. So this has actually come from Fleurieu Distillery down the Fleurieu Peninsula in South Australia. Good friends of mine, really passionate people doing some really, really good stuff. And when I got this spirit, at that stage, Gareth and Angela were only laying 2 barrels a week. And they came up with the idea, instead of numbering their barrels, that they would name their barrels. And it was named with infamous couples. So you had Bonnie and Clyde, and you had others, and you had Brad and Angelina, but they separate those casks. They rolled them apart to either end of the distillery. So I thought about it and because I laid 2 barrels, 200-litre barrels. Well, they filled 200-litre barrels. I gave them 2 barrels. I said, these are the barrels I want to fill. And I thought about the same concept. So I said, well, that's really cool. And then I like music, and I was thinking, what would be 2 musicians that would be incredible together? And I just always thought Billie Holiday and Miles Davis. So it's the Billie Holiday and Miles Davis casks, which is that's the story behind it. That's the story. And the barrels are Andrew Young super casks. These are some of the earlier ones that I had. So these are South Australian big Barossa Shiraz casks that have had Oloroso sherry in for a year and really, really heavy char. And this is something that Fleurieu don't use. So what you're going to taste is the Fleurieu spirit expressed a completely different way, which that's what independent bottling's about, in my opinion.
I have to ask, what is an Andrew Young super cask?
Cool. Okay. So for those who don't know, Andrew Young is a gregarious master cooperer. He's in Barossa in Seppeltfield, and he's got a very small cooperage, and he's got a small team, very experienced. His offsider Rodney, I think he's got about 50 years experience cooperage, and they make amazing casks. I use quite a lot of Andrew Young's super casks. Now, the super cask format is something that Andrew developed, and he could see a shortage in old woods, fortifieds. So he was trying to develop a way to approximate aged wood as much as possible through toasting, through char, and through seasoning casks. So he came up with the idea of taking big, buffy Barossa Shiraz casks. So these would be 225 barrique type casks, filling them with Oloroso Spanish sherry for 1 year. And he seasons the barrel for 1 year. Then he pulls the sherry out and he uses it in other barrels. He then does this toast, reasonable toast, and then he chars the living crap out of them, would be the best way to describe it. And you get really big, toffee, rich, syrupy flavors off the whiskey. And it took me 2.5 years really, before I started to really understand how the super casks were working in conjunction with my new make, but also in conjunction with the independent bottlings and the new makes that we're using. So it's exciting. I've got some projects with Andrew, and we've actually just done a 225 super cask. So previously they've all been 100-litre super casks or 50-litre super casks. Now we've gone up to 225, and we'll know in about a year how that's developing in conjunction compared to the more traditional 100-litre super cask. So there's a lot of people, not a lot, but there's a few people using super casks. Chrissy Lark loves them. Dan Woolley loves them. Trying to think who else is using. There's others as well. Marty Riverbourne, he's had a crack at them as well. So yeah, that's the short answer. What a super cask is.
It's interesting concept. It's Are you maturing the entire life of that whiskey in that cask, or just like finishing really in the super casks?
Good question. A bit of both. Some of the releases have been in one cask format and then gone into a super cask. to just sort of pep it up. And the other times we've had in super casks and we've pulled it out and put it into other casks to sort of tone it down.
It's a very chewy whiskey, but you said Oloroso, right?
This one, no, this is the super cask format. Oloroso sherry. Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and what ABV are we enjoying this one at?
This one is it's still in the barrel, so it's cask, so it's 62, I think, from memory. Yeah, about 62.5%ish. So the Fleurieu salted caramel flavor profile, which they're known for. What do you think? Are you getting that out of it?
I've just added a few drops of water to it, and the creaminess from that profile really comes to the surface. It's the first thing you notice after a couple of drops. So, I encourage people at home when you try a bit, cask strength, and then add a couple of drops of water and compare. Joe Muck has said amazing. Really enjoy the fruitiness. So yeah, that's I'm getting quite a lot of florals coming through as well at the top.
The one thing about this is, so this is actually whiskey. This is over 2 years old, about 2 years and 4 months, something like that. But to me, this is not ready. This is going to go another summer. So in Australia, we tend to talk about summers as opposed to years. And this definitely, I think, needs another summer. I think it'll rich up a lot more, become a lot more syrupy. But the flavors are there. They're good flavors. I'm really happy. Shandy, how are you, mate?
What's everyone think of whiskey number 3? Thumbs up?
Well, that'll probably be a release middle of next year, I'd anticipate.
Yeah. Dimmy says, love it already. Stephen has said, so chewy. That was the first thing I noticed as well. It's fun playing around with samples straight out of the cask. Feels like, it's the second best thing of being, inside the distillery is doing it virtually from home like this. So
I'll tell you one of the biggest learnings that I have not learned this out of a textbook. I have not learned this on any courses that I've done. But when you taste something in a barrel, it tastes a certain way, right? And you go, okay, I understand how this is tasting. When you pull it out and you put it into, say, a receiver, like a stainless steel receiver to prep to get ready to bottle it, it changes. It changes dramatically from how it tastes in the cask. Then if you add water to break it down to a certain strength, it changes again. Then when you put it into a bottle, and it's at the strength that you want, and it's a fresh bottling, leave it alone. Leave it alone for a couple of weeks because it changes again. So when you're making decisions on something that's up in a cask, in your mind, you've got to go, okay, I know how it's tasting in this cask, but how is it going to change to when it's actually in the bottle? And I think there's a big skill which is underplayed in the industry, that interpretation of flavor profile in the barrel to what it is in the actual, what it is in the bottle. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Just the amount of foresight or just experience, I think over time you just learn the ins and outs and you go, okay, it tastes maybe okay, but when you think about it in its stages by the time it gets into the bottle in someone's glass at home, it could be 12, 24 months from that initial barrel tasting, right? So, but and then you need to think about it. How long is it sitting on someone's shelf? And I know it's not maturing any longer in the glass, but everything changes all along, every stage of the process. Yeah,
I'm a big believer. There's two schools of thought. When you open a bottle of whiskey, it doesn't really change much. I'm a big believer in it does change. It starts to oxidize straight away. And so if you're down to like quarter of a bottle, don't let it sit around too long because it will change. And over the years, I've had some great Brook Laddies. I'm a big fan of Brook Laddie. And I've had some great Brook Laddies that I've left a bit too long and gone, damn, they've changed and it's not gone the way I thought it would.
You can always decant it into a smaller bottle. Make sure there's less air in the top. It's not just oxidant. Too many drones already. I'm not going to attempt it anymore. Just got a comment here. Definitely thumbs up. Yes, chewy, oily, even more of a flavor bomb with a few drops of water. So there you go, mate. It's some comments starting to come in. So sounds like a crowd.
Fleurieu's spirit is rich and toffee and chewy. So that's your foundation behind it. And the super casks, you definitely get some chewiness coming out of that wood. Cool.
Awesome. There's a nice sweetness to this at the end on the finish. It tastes like it's older than what it is, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And that's when we get further on, I'll talk about that, because that is something which I love, that fact that we can make whiskies that taste beyond their years. And it's a technique. It's the way we can do it in Australia with the materials that we're using, our climates, our barrel sizes. Yeah, it's interesting.
Awesome. Shall we jump into whiskey number 4?
Okay, so what's 4?
The PX cask, WIP, work in progress, is what everyone has on their labels.
I would be very interested to see what people think of this one. Okay, so this is... this is straight out of the cask as well. This is 63.5%, so cask strength. Probably went in around about 64%, I think. So what we find is in Australia, depends on your climate and that, but your starting ABV when you fill a barrel and when you decant a barrel, some will go up and some will go down. It depends. We tend to be fairly stable. We tend to be, if we go in at 64, we'll come out at about 64. But some distilleries go way down, a couple of points, and some go up. Right, so this is your first, hang on, let me check. Miles, Vatman. Okay, this is your first 100% Craftworks Distillery whiskey. This is whiskey, and this is not independent bottling. So this is what has been distilled in the shed. This is based on our malt approach, which is our taking a stout beer and breaking a stout beer back. And the reason I went for that approach is because I believe, this is my own personal philosophy, I believe you can build a big, complex new make base and work with big barrels, big flavored barrels, and make a really complex young whiskey. And you can put a glass of something that's young and it has a lot of complexity, and it does some traditional whiskey drinkers' heads in because they think you need age. Absolutely. If we were making whiskey in Capity, like we wanted to make a 12-year-old, 15-year-old whiskey, we would not be making it this way. We're deliberately making a full-throated, big base whiskey to be a young whiskey and have flavor complexity. So some of these malts that we're using, they're like peat. They die off over time. But when the whiskey's young, they really carry. It's a bit like, as you know, if you love peated whiskey, go for a young peated whiskey. Don't go for an older peated whiskey because the flavor just becomes so integrated. And that's what's going on here. So this is a PX cask. So this was an imported cask from Spain. I got a series of PX casks, Oloroso casks, Manzanilla casks, and others. And this was filled with Craftworks New Make Spirit just over 2 years ago. So this is technically whiskey. So technically we could sell it. And it's, when I tasted it the other day, I went, yeah, that's really good because it's doing what a PX cask should do. And it just works, I think, really well with our base flavors, which is our whiskey flavors off the new make.
I think we'll go around the room and ask, people, please put in the comments. So what do you think of whiskey number 4, the PX cask, before we chat about it? But Crafty, just one thing I wanted to unpack. So this is we're the very first people technically in Australia to try this cask, right? This is yet to be released. This is separate from your first release. I know it's still technically a work in progress, but we're the lucky ones to basically they get a sneak peek of what's up and coming, right?
Oh yeah. And this one of the exciting things that Todd and I discovered about 6 months ago is that it's been an experiment to start with a stout-based recipe as your new make base is pretty bloody ballsy straight off the bat. So when you're trained and shown how to distill, you traditionally go just with base malts, ale malts, pilsner malts, whatever. That's more the traditional approach. And I learnt all that, but I went with the stout-based recipe because I did believe that those big flavors would make a really interesting whiskey. And you've got to make your own whiskey. You've got to find your own way. And I've copped flack over the development times that just make a standard whiskey. You need to make a base whiskey. And I've gone, no, I want to make something a little bit different because I have to create my own signature here. And yeah, so not that long ago, Todd and I were tasting barrels, and I looked at Todd and I went, whew, thank God the experiment's paid off, because it could have been an absolute disaster. And what we've found is, this is really exciting to us, our DNA, Craftworks DNA flavor profile is running through all our barrels. It doesn't matter if it's a PX cask, a rum cask, a cider cask, a bourbon cask, there is a signature which is already starting to come through. And I honestly didn't think we would do that for 5 years. I really thought it would take time. So that's a testament to the strength of the new make. It really does power. It really does present well.
But some comments. Take a sip. I'll read it out. So Tim says she's a hairy one, but nice after the first punch. Had to chase with some water. Jimmy says each of these samples have this signature oiliness that is absolutely delicious. I agree. There's just after you take that first sip, you can see the legs of the oils running down the glass. It just sticks to the glass. Christian says this PX shows great promise. There you go, Christian. Thank you for the warm words.
I'll take that.
Jamie says loving it. It's going very well with the lightning show here. I agree, mate. I don't know if everyone can see from home, but every few minutes there's like it's right above me at the moment. So hopefully it passes soon. I don't know where you are, Jamie, but we're Crafty and we're either side of inner west right now. So I think he's just missed it. It's come right above me, and it's probably heading your way.
Yep, we're all good.
Yeah. There you go. Joe says, I'm really enjoying it. Easy to drink at the current strength. Yeah, I'm finding it at its current ABV. It's quite approachable.
Mm. Well, you mentioned the oiliness. I think it's worth mentioning that. So the Craftworks still, Sunflower Still number 1, is made in New South Wales by Burns Welding and Fabrication, a very good friend of mine and a mentor of mine. And I sat down with Burnsy and I said, mate, I want to make I don't want to make a light floral spirit. I want to make something quite heavy, robust and oily. And the still is doing the job. We're getting good oils, richness, texture, which leads to good mouthfeel. So yes, pretty excited with what's happening.
What's the ABV on this one? Got a question from the audience.
It is 60. Oh, geez, what is it? 63.5.
There you go.
I don't know if you can see it, but
yeah, it's got that dark PX color. So you said it's technically whiskey already, but you want to leave this one a bit longer?
Yeah, I'd like to see it syrup up a little more to create a bit more mouthfeel. I think it's still a bit young. I think another summer. It will do it well. We'll probably move its position on the rack, take it up a bit so it gets a bit more heat. The cask is a really good cask, but it's doing good things. And but I've got other things as well, and this one, not yet.
So we got a few more questions from the audience before we kick into the main event. Is Fam is asking, would you ever release a stout-based new make? Very curious to try it.
Yeah, I have actually. We released a small amount, and we sold it as NMS, New Make Spirit. It was a bit of a creative blip, coming up with a name like NMS to sell something. And we sold it a bit into bars for cocktails because they found it quite a robust spirit to build cocktails off. And so that was pretty cool. And yeah, from time to time, people will ask, can they get their hands on new make? I'm doing a couple of projects with a couple of bars where we're doing a barrel and filling it with new make. And people that have taken the spirit and taken it home and put it into barrels themselves, we're getting good feedback off the new make.
We got Christian's asking, what ABV do you put the new make into the wood?
Depends how lazy we are. Generally, we work around 63 to 64.5, which is more of a traditional Scottish approach. If you said to me, why do you do it like that? That's a really good question. I don't know. We want to play around with barrel strengths. Some people are barreling at a lower strength. Starwood barrels at a lower strength, I think. Yeah. Do you know what strength they barrel at? It's in the 50s, isn't it? The high 50s from memory?
58 or even around 60. McHenry has to do it lower and lower each year because he loses. It's so dry where he's based, especially those Antarctic winds. It just evaporates all the moisture out of his casks. So his ABVs skyrocket to the 70s sometimes. I was talking to him a few weeks ago.
Okay, this is what's going on. Yeah,
he's built a bunker. His bond store is inside a bunker underground now to combat this because longer term, he's said the inconsistencies is going to just be a struggle for his business. But now it's all on the ground. The moisture will be controlled, the temperatures, the evaporation, everything's there's electronics in there to kind of moderate it, but it's in a concrete bunker on the ground now at the back of his shed there. And he said that should fix things. But yeah, he's had the extreme Antarctic weathers and those hot Hobart summers as well where he's based. But Christian's asked, do you tend to go up or down in ABV when over the years for yours?
Float around 63, 64. I have had a couple of barrels which have been lower, but they've been wet-filled barrels. So I'm inclined to think that it's just a reduction in strength because of what's coming out of the wood, the underlying wine or whatever. I must get down. I'm looking forward now the borders are open and see what happens 2021, but I'm looking forward to getting back down to Tassie and catching up with a few mates down there. And definitely, Bill McHenry was one of the very first distillers I met. This was back in 2013, I think it was. And when I started my IB journey, I was down in Tassie. I was going to Tassie, and Bill said, mate, come down, spend an afternoon with me. I'll tell you what I know, and I'll tell you some of the things that I've done wrong so you don't make the same mistakes. And it just opened his doors. So I've always had a soft spot for Bill and what he's done, and he's a cool dude.
He's very cool. He's been doing it for a long time as well. So you can kind of see when you ask him some basic distilling questions. Last time I was down there, he's just like, "Oh, go talk to the rest of the staff." Now it's he's done his time around the sun. No, he's a good sort. He's always wealth of knowledge and willing to share. That's one thing that a lot of Aussie distilleries are known for. It's great.
Yeah, and here's hoping it continues.
All right, shall we main event, the first official single malt release. So for those who don't know, Crafty started distilling, getting new make spirit from other distilleries, maturing it on site, then releasing it under his IB label name. That's been happening for the last 2-3 years, but it's all been kind of all those knowledge, all those learnings, all those mistakes have kind of cultivated into it's not just good enough to release your first whiskey. A lot of distilleries just do it. I think Crafty's been on this journey the last few years, which has kind of put him in a really good position. I think I was chatting to you this last time about Crafty A lot of first-time distilleries just launch their first barrel that they put down, and it's usually a 20-liter cask, and good luck to you, and that's it. And it sells for an astronomical price because they're trying to make some margin back on it. And you've taken a slightly different approach, the less traditional, I think, Aussie distilling approach. But this is your first official release. Congratulations. We've got Project Ian, but do you want to actually tell us what it's officially called now that it's out?
Can I swear?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
All right, okay. So I got to tell you about Project Ian. So a good mate of mine, Ed from Ottercraft Distilling, OCD. So I did a Facebook post, and it was the label for the first release, I Am, right? But I blurred it all out. And so I get this phone call from Ed, and Ed being Ed, I pick it up and he goes, without saying anything, he goes, so who the fuck's Ian? I go, what? Who the fuck's Ian? I go, what do you mean? And he goes, I've seen your Facebook post. And I go, I still don't understand. And he goes, I've seen your Facebook post. I blew it up. It clearly says Ian. And Ed knows a lot about my business, and I know a lot about his business. And there'd never, ever been a discussion about an Ian. And in his mind, I had put the name Ian on the front of my first release. So this Ian character was a significant contribution to Craftworks, and I just hadn't talked about it. So I went, mate, I can't talk. I've got to go. Click, put the phone down. A week later, Ed rings up. Who the fuck is Ian? So I created the taunt of Ed. So for, I don't know, about 3 months, it was called Project Ian. And I had people coming in to Cellar Door and tasting Project Ian and loving it. And I'd say, look, can we do a little video? And they went, yeah. And I'd say, I'm going to introduce you, and then I'm going to go off screen and I'm going to go, hey, Ian, and you're going to turn around like you're an Ian. And so it sort of gained a momentum in its own. And we had tons of videos, and we did the whiskey show, and we had all these Ians, real Ians, and make-believe Ians, and it just went on and on and on. So that was Project Ian. But what Project Ian is actually I Am. And if you go like that, it does actually look like Ian. In fact, one of my best customers sent me a photo. I think he actually posted it. No, he might have. Yeah, he posted it, where he took a texter pen and he blocked it out so it looks like Ian. But it's actually called I Am. And so what is I Am? Early in my piece, so I've been doing this 5.5 years. So it's 5.5 years of thinking and everything that's gone into this first release. And I came up with this concept of I am a craft worker, therefore I am, which basically it's based on the French philosopher Descartes' thinking, I think, therefore I am. So for me, it was I'm doing what I'm doing, and it makes me feel like I'm complete, I'm a person. So it was a very important philosophy for Craftworks. There's two core philosophies. There is I'm a craft worker, therefore I am, and there's humanizing the art of whiskey. Everything hangs off those two things. So I Am is based on I am a craft worker, therefore I am. But I Am is also, and it says it on the back of the bottle, is, I am releasing this, I am proud and everything, but what's your I Am story? And so what I want to do is I want people to tell me their I Am story. So I am sharing this with friends. I am giving this to my father as a gift. I am going out with mates tonight, we're going to drink it. I am thinking this is shit. Whatever it is, it's I Am. It's create your own I Am story. And it's already starting to happen organically. I haven't even started on I Am. So we're going from Project Ian to I Am. A $20 million free marketing campaign, Project Ian, has now become I Am. So yeah, the label, I put a huge amount of work into this label. People said to me, with the independent bottling, how is Craftworks first release going to be different than your independent bottling? You could not be more different. This is, everything on IB is quite playful. This is very serious. This is black and white. There is no color on this. And what it is, I Am, it's the logo, it's the Craftworks logo coming to life. So there's a road and there's land all around. That's Caperty. That is a shot of Caperty. So that is the front. On the back, that's where all the color is. And there's a couple of different things happening there. If you can see, there's a beautiful color photo. Well, that's Caperty. But it's also, for me, it's a gentle nod to my love, passion, inspiration of Brooke Laddie. Because Brooke Laddie introduced a series called the Links series, which was a series of beautiful paintings, photos from around the world, golf courses. And to me, it was just such an iconic release, collector's set. So it's a bit of a gentle nod to Brooke Laddie. And also there's a little photo of me by the still, which comes back to the whole humanizing the art of whiskey. We're all about, this is as real as it gets. This is what we do. Ed from OCD etched the bottles, first release, which is really cool. So it's quite a statement piece. So
just to interrupt, a friend of mine actually, I don't know if people can, I don't know, it's coming through.
Ain't just a white light.
Someone sent me the whole series of the Link series. So I've got all the canisters. They've been collecting it. They finally got their last one.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So you can sort of see where I've gone with that, with the back, and that's a local photographer.
No, it's not going to work with it. I'll send it to you. Or put it up on Facebook. But yeah, it's I love the fact you've everything to do with the bottle, everything, the spirit in it's all local. It's all based around your philosophy and then just the place to, you know, and to me, I know we started on this trend. Please visit Caperty and experience the wonder of that. It's such a remote part of the world. Like you barely get any mobile reception. So in a way, it kind of nicely forces you to switch off from the busy lives. And you just get to take in the nature, the ruggedness, all the smells, sights, sounds of you know being in rural Australia. And it's only 2.5 hours from Sydney, so
2.5. And if you carry on another 2 hours, you can go to Blackgate. You've got Nathan Williams, Baker Williams in Mudgee. That's only 45 minutes down the road. You've got Stone and Pine out of Bathurst Way. You've got Parrot out at Orange. You've got Smith. There's a lot of things happening out our way.
And wine, a lot of wineries as well. You're surrounded. So you know if you need to encourage the other half, you know, don't just visit the distilleries. There's wineries out there. There's cheese shops. You know, Mudgee's got an awesome little cheese shop. Yeah, explore the whole region, taste it, enjoy it. There's so much to discover. Ralston has an olive. One of the best olive oils you can get in the world right now. And that's like, 20 minutes down the road from you?
Yeah. There's a lot of good things happening in Ralston. You've got DeBow Repair Winery. They're at an altitude which is quite similar and climate soil similar to Burgundy in France. And they make French-style wines. A good mate of mine, Will DeBow Repair. Fascinating place. And there's another winery. There's the olive place, as you said. There's Yum Cha. There's a Yum Cha restaurant. There's people that come out from Sydney just to go to the Yum Cha restaurant in Ralston. So I haven't been yet, but apparently it's stunning.
Before COVID, we turned up thinking I would be a quick, you know, lunch feed on the way to Mudgee one time. Middle of the day, Saturday, it was an hour queue.
Yeah, that'll be right.
It was just, and across the road, there's pie shops, but there's pie shops all over from the Blue Mountains up until Mudgee. So everyone's gone, and I think that was featured in Broadsheet or something crazy. And then, yeah, the tourists just came out of nowhere for the olive oil and for the Yum Cha. And they were like, please go away. There's too many people. We're going to sell out in 10 minutes. And
so should we talk about the whiskey?
Please, a couple of comments quickly. Dimmy says, I am buying all your whiskey. There you go. And Jamie says, I am loving this whiskey. So there's your first two, mate.
Awesome. This is 5.5 years creation. So everything that I've learned through independent bottling has gone into making this whiskey. It's been a very creative process. It's been a very emotional process, and with COVID and just it's been a tough old time, and everyone's mental states have been challenged, including mine. And I was actually going to release this earlier, and I pulled back because just mentally I just wasn't there. As far as, it was a significant thing to release your first single malt whiskey. I've got to say that my partner in crime, my creative partner, Todd, has had a huge part to play with this. We have had numerous discussions and tastings and disagreements over how we should go with this, and agreements, of course, and agreements. And I assembled a group of people who I call the Assembled, and it's people in the industry and outside the industry. And I actually gave them the components of this whiskey and said, this is what the thinking is. Take this and these parts and put it together at this ratio. And they were along the whole creative process to when we've got to this point where we actually put in the bottle. They have loved the experience, and I have loved having them part of the experience, because I'm a firm believer in, you just don't trust your own palate. You got to make what you like, for sure, but you don't trust your own palate. You need independent commentary on it. So
are you taking expressions of interest? I think there might be a few applications after this tasting.
Well, this is a complex whiskey. This is a very complex whiskey. This is not a single cask. No, one, it's not a single cask. It's actually 3 casks. 2, it's not a wet fill. It's not a charred cask. It's a combination of wet filled and charred cask. And I'll go through how this cask was put together. So this is the original, the very first new make stout-based recipe, which we've modified since then. And it was 100% matured and capity, and everything else. So the barrel program is complex. So what it is it's 3 barrels. It's one, which is, they're all French oak barrels to start with. The first barrel is originally it was a Cabernet Sauvignon 225 Barrique wine cask that then became a vintage port cask and became a holding vintage port cask, so multiple fills of port. So that came from a winery, Peter Van Gent Winery, who I have a long relationship with, 7 years. It's the same foundation casks that we used to make Black Soul Beast, which was a very big deal for Craftworks, except for Black Soul Beast was charred. In this, the PBG cask was not charred. They degorged it. I was there. I picked it up. I brought it back. I filled it with new make straight away. It was ready to go. So that is one part, one line of how we've put this together. The other line was 2 super casks, 2 50-litre super casks. So Andrew Young super casks that we were talking about. They're originally French oak, 225, big Barossa casks that have had Oloroso sherry in for a year, degorged, toasted, and really heavily charred. Those 2 50-litre casks were on the shelf, filled at the same time, on the shelf at the same time, 2 totally different barrels, which was unexpected. So we pre-married those 2 casks to create a certain flavor profile. And then it was a question of, how do we get the ratios right between the wet fill cask and the charred cask? To me, the PVG cask had a real cough syrupy note on it early in the piece. After about 6 months, we noticed it, which was really interesting. Whereas super casks were really toffee rich and char, and you could taste almost like a smoke element, which adds structure. So it's not a peated smoke, it's a campfire smoke, and it adds structure. So we gave those components to the Assembled, the group, got them to play around with ratios. We had an idea of what the ratios were. And actually on the day that Todd and I put it together, we flipped it. And it was actually ended up to be a 1-to-1 ratio. We thought it was going to be a 2-to-1 ratio. And we went 1-to-1 because it was so much more aromatic. So, yep. This is a very rich whiskey. This is not a light whiskey. This is definitely an end of night whiskey, and it's got all the nutty notes of Craftworks. It's got the chocolate notes in the back. It's got the biscuity notes, and they're the three main components that I'm looking for, is that chocolatey, biscuity, nutty sort of note. The spirit is very oily, and this is only 2.5 years old, this whiskey. It really unwinds. The way I promote it at Cellar Door is I say to people, this is a lawnmower whiskey. This is you take a sip, then you go mow the lawns, and then you come back and then you drink it. It just continues to evolve in the glass, which is really, really exciting. And it takes water too. Originally, this was going to be a 54% release. It drinks well at 54%, but in the end, I opted for cask strength, because that's going back to my roots with independent bottling, with the first release, Just Derek. And to me, this just drinks so well, so smooth at cask strength. And you can just add a small amount of water as you see fit.
Hey, congratulations. First release. I think that's worthy of its own applause. Just on that feat alone, it's been a journey and a half, I imagine, to get to this point. So congratulations.
And your first release, you can never do your first release again. And to me, it was important to showcase, our core beliefs that you can make young, complex whiskey. And this is a young, complex whiskey.
So have you got a bottle on? Can you show us the side of the bottle? I believe you got an inscription as well. This is just a limited one-time thing, right?
It's got first release, which is laser etched on the bottle.
There you go.
And that's the front. And this really stands out. So there's another side of it. So I came from a packaging background from many years ago. And so I sat down with former customers who are now my suppliers. And I said, guys, I really want to go to town on this. So there's lots of things going on. There's gloss varnishes, there's matte varnishes. It's very tactile at this stage. It's very, very striking. You put that on a bar, right? It really does pop. It's like, what is that? And there's such a story behind it. So I'm super, super, super proud. I'm really proud of the flavor profile. And this shows the direction that Craftworks is going. It's a very unique whiskey. It's like no other whiskey that I've tasted, apart from, and you'll appreciate this, Ollie. So over the weekend, we celebrated. It's been a hard week, and we celebrated. So Todd, Kathy, his wife, who's my reality check manager, Andrea, Mrs. Crafty, and I pulled out a bottle of Black Arts 1989 to celebrate, which was paying homage to Brooke Laddie, who have been highly influential in what I'm doing. Todd bought a cake, Glenmorangie cake, which is an awesome drop. Very interesting whiskey, that one. And then he also bought Signet, and Signet has been very inspirational over the years. I think Signet's been around for 20 something odd years. And we tasted this side by side with Signet, and honestly, it held its own. It wasn't a hot tannic mess, if for want of a better word, if you know what I mean. It really did stand up. So
no, that's ultimate praise right there. Just put it against the established players in the room, and to hold its own. That's great feedback. You mentioned the Craftworks DNA, and I'm just putting the question out to the audience. I immediately got it. Those choc malt cereal tones that we tried in the PX cask is so evident here. It's if you had a blind tasting and gave it, all the other whiskies, and I said pick the two that feel like brother and sister. Those two to me tick those boxes, if that makes sense.
It does, but also Vatman. Within the return of Vatman, the one you tasted earlier on, there's definitely the Craftworks contribution flavor there. You can taste that biscuity, nutty, chocolatey thing going on. Yeah,
the nose is the first thing you notice it on. It's it really sucks you into the glass.
To the winemaker today, and I said, mate, I think I'm going to need more casks, so we got to get organised.
So we've got maybe a couple more minutes left. If there's any other questions from the audience, just please let it through. But Crafty, you want to give a quick recap about your expansion plans? I know you've got a little bit more room in the shed now. What's new to look forward to?
Okay, so we've sort of we've crossed the Rubicon now. We're no longer a toy distillery. We're a micro distillery. So we've gone from 60 square meter shed to 120 square meter shed. Which means we're still setting up. But previously I used to brew and have to drag my mash tun, which was on a boat trailer, in and out of the shed. The plan is we'll put the mash tun on the deck. We've got a second still on order. It's a smaller one, about 300 litre still column. And we're making gin currently, working with my gin mentor, Carew. I'm their whiskey mentor and they're my gin mentor. So we've got a gin, so we're going to be making the gin. We're going to be doing seasonal liqueurs, but it also gives me an R&D ability as well, because up until now, all R&D has been done on a 970 litre pot still, which sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. So a little still means we're more agile, we can play around. We are growing some barley. We're doing some barley trials next year, which is going to be very cool, with a local farmer who takes my spent grain. And we're going to be experimenting with some smoked malts, and there's something coming out very soon. Next year, smoking some malts different ways, working with our partners, collaborative partners, Voyager Craft Malts. They're awesome guys. They actually malt a special a roasting profile for me, which is crazy because it's only a couple of bags a month, and that's called Crafty Special Roast, and that's the salt and pepper in our mash bill. It's really cool. So yeah, and barrel program. Been working with Andrew Young for many years, and we're doing some good things, trying some different cask formats. Been working with Transwood down in Dave and Pam down in Tassie. Just got a shipment of old rumwood casks, which are really exciting. And we're playing around with the mash bill. We're going to be tweaking it. We're currently 4 malts. We're probably going to go to 5 malts, I think. What else? I think that's enough, isn't it?
Right, it sounds like it's all happening. Whilst you were talking just now, I went back to Vatman number 2. It's a peated version of a blend of the last two. That kind of makes sense. You're right. The DNA is right there.
Bingo. Totally agree. Yeah. Cool.
Final question to our lovely audience. Stephen at the drop off, he sends his apologies. You'll catch the last few minutes in the videos. I like to ask this of all virtual tastings we've been doing this year, is just to go around the room and just go, what's your favorite dram of tonight? Please put it into the comments. We'll get to your question in a second, James and family. But yeah, please, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. Please put it into the comments. We'll see what everyone thinks. But questions just come in. Any thoughts on using Australian wood like red gum, etc.? Crafty.
Yeah, I'm not. You mean from a barrel perspective or from a smoking perspective?
I think a barrel.
From a barrel perspective. No, not really. There's people out there doing it. I mean, Lee and Bree, Backwards, red gum is their thing, and they've made some really interesting stuff. I tasted it about a year ago. Super excited for them. And there's other distillers experimenting with Australian hardwoods. It's not really my bag at this stage. I'm more interested in the smoking aspect of smoking woods. There's a great distillery in the US called Corsair Distillery. They've been highly influential in my approach. And I'm just spending some time right now deep diving into some of their projects on smoking malts. So that's more the direction. From a barrel perspective, we're always on the hunt for different sorts of barrels. But there's I think red gum. No, it's not for me, this one. Or eucalyptus.
I know Sullivan's Cove are going to very soon release another Aussie wood. I forget the name of it, the other, not the red gum. It'll come back to me.
Jarrah?
Yeah, Jarrah. Yeah. They've been playing with it. They said it's so leaky. It was an experiment that they probably won't ever repeat. I was talking to Harriet and the team down there a few months ago. They said it produces an interesting whiskey of the spirits. You can see it, the wood, it does its job, but it's nothing too crazy from, to paraphrase. But yeah, I know Redlands, before they were Old Kempton, they released the Redlands Red Gum release. Yeah, Backwards has a couple casks. First one should be coming in January or February. Last time I spoke to Bree, so almost ready. But they've got a slightly different mash bill compared to Redlands. They've using heavy Voyager malts. They've got their own yeast strand as well, and they're doing a rye as well as a single malt. So maybe the rye in the Red Gum might work. That might be the connection that connects the Aussie wood together. I don't know. We'll find out in the coming months.
Yeah.
Just looking at these comments very quickly. Sam says number 4 work in progress is their favorite. Joe says I love the 3rd. Tim says thanks very much, SOB for me, followed by the Fleurieu.
Yep.
The Jemson's family says number 5 and number 2 is their favorites. Jamie says the single malt is number 1, followed by Sons of Bourbon and then the Fleurieu.
Yep.
So, a couple bourbons and Fleurieu so far.
Quite a good spread. That's good.
Christian said, I've got a Jarrah sample from Applewood here, mate. Let me know what you think of that one. That one's quite controversial from memory. Quite a pricey dram from memory, but yeah, hopefully it's an interesting whiskey. Dimmy says number 2, 3, and 5 in no order, all amazing. So thank you. Christian's not tried it yet, so we'll hopefully find out in the coming months. And Jamie says thanks very much for an amazing experience. Thank you everyone at home. If there's no other final questions, I might hand it back to Crafty for one more sentence or two of some wise words, maybe a sneak peek into something interesting coming up. Otherwise, can we buy some whiskey from you? That's the very last important question I had. If you want to try the first release, it's on sale now. Talk to Crafty. Crafty, how can we get our hands on it?
Okay, so it's available on our website at this stage. So that's www.craftworker.com.au. It will be going. There is some stock in the Oak Barrel. Oak Barrel has been loyal supporters for us over many years. There will be stock shortly at World of Whiskey. Ivan Miles and the team out of Double Bay. There will be stock at Lewis Cellars when I get out there and drop some stock off for Scotty and Co. The Old Barrel House, big supporters of us, David MK and Squire Ross. So they're going to have stock as well. So we'll be out there, and shortly we'll be getting into a few bars. So if someone just wants to go and taste it and see what it's like, it's right now we're just trying to get orders out the door. We've been absolutely smashed. I was at the post office queuing up today for a bit, and tomorrow will be the same. And hopefully I clear the backlog tomorrow, which is good.
Awesome. So that's the first release in the Shades of Bourbon. I was going to call it.
Correct. Shades of Bourbon, which is on there, and I Am is on there, as well as other independents. A lot of the independents are sold out, and shortly, Christmas-ish, we'll put our gin on. We've also, now's a good time. So Carew Distillery, good friends of mine. Like I said, they're my gin mentor and I'm their whiskey mentor. We did a barrel-aged gin project, which was very successful, complete sellout. That was taking a barrel of ex-barrel of whiskey and then using that and coming up with a gin recipe, adjusting the botanicals. So it actually married with the barrel. So we started work on release number 2. So we're hoping to get that out before Christmas.
Awesome. Well, good luck to release number 2. Jump on the website, sign up to Crafty's newsletter as well, and that way you get first pick of all the other whiskies that are coming up over the next 6 to 12 months. But yeah, Crafty, thank you so much for tonight. I know we've gone a little bit over time, but it's been amazing to chat through some new whiskies that are coming out, some sample casks that are work in progress. It's I love these small intimate tastings. It's you really get to spend some time with the maker and hear about from the the coalface, what's actually happening on the ground and what's exciting, and to get this experience, always a fun way to kind of enjoy it on a Tuesday night. Thank you to everyone at home for your questions, your comments. Please support local, support Crafty, jump on his website. Those first releases will sell out and then they're gone, and that's it. And we always hear about, I wish I was, grabbed a second bottle or third one. So please support local. If you really enjoyed any of those releases, please jump on it. Thank you. I think this might be one of our very last tastings of the year. I think we've got the most ultimate whiskey champs is kind of a fun thing we're doing on the side in December, but in terms of it, Crafty, thank you for being one of our very last virtual tastings of this year, and look forward to doing another one hopefully next year with you as well for the next release.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. I appreciate it, and it's really good that I can show you what Craftworks is up to in as you said, a small intimate setting. We're all about humanizing the art of whiskey. We tell the story, the good, the bad, the ugly, and there is bad and there is ugly. That's part of it. We've built our following up by being very open, very transparent, sharing our experiences, sharing our passion, and sharing our journey. This is a journey. This is the logo. This is a journey. And right now it's a pause on the journey that we reflect what we're doing. But I was brewing, doing low wines runs at 2 a.m. this week, straight back into it. There's no time to pause.
Awesome. And please, if you're ever out halfway between Lithgow and Mudgee, jump in, say hello to Crafty. He'll be around in January and February, almost every second weekend there. But hit him up on Facebook. He's super active. He'll tell you when he's around, and he can kind of organise time to meet up and see his distillery in action.
Cool. Sounds good.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas if I don't chat to everyone ahead of time. But thanks for supporting the Whiskey List and Craftworks Distillery.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
See you all.
Thanks all.